Welcome back to Comic Book ASMR. Today we're going to be looking at the X-Men art and making of the X-Men animated series art book. And so, yeah, if you'll notice, this is a really wide book. So I've got the camera pulled out quite a bit. So some of the finer details might not get picked up on camera. So I do apologize for that. But this is just kind of a brief overview of the book. I encourage you to go out and find it yourself. So you can see it opens with these nice little animation cells, and quite a few of these you can actually get online currently. So if you're into that, definitely check that out. I love the opening here too. It's very reminiscent of the X-Men action figure packaging. So they got that motif going. It's just, if you were a fan of the X-Men at all, this just hits all of those little nostalgic notes for you. So, and yeah, it starts off showing some keys here. We've got the X-Men #1 and the giant size X-Men, which was like a lot of the newer team premiered in here and just kind of relaunched the X-Men. They were stagnant for a good long time, and then they just kind of got brought back with that annual. So, but yeah, this is just the history of the cartoon here. I saw this image over here. It's a wall poster from the Fox Kids magazine. I actually used to have that hanging on my bedroom door, so I can attest to, the value behind that. Not sure if any of you had it. It was like, I think like a little 20-page, cheaply made, like paper-thin color magazine, but every now and then had some cool stuff like that in it, so. And we see a lot more of the early stuff here. Jack Kirby, Stan Lee stuff. And then we see a crossover into the newer here. Footnoted by, or bookend rather, by Jim Lee. Which, ta-da, here's some more Jim Lee. And as I said in the card video I just did, I'll leave a link to that below too, but Jim Lee's stuff was really a springboard for the animated series look. This comic was selling millions of copies, so they're just like, well, let's give them what they want. Let's do it. An animated show set in the look and feel of what Jim Lee was doing, which was crazy because, there's a lot of fine line details and stuff with what Jim did. But the cartoon was still able to pull it off, even though they couldn't do, those super fine, like the cross-hatching and all that. I think a lot of it just kind of had to do with the lighting, and then you would put kind of like the heavy black shadow on a lot of bits, which you didn't quite see a lot in shows at that time, I guess. I mean, this was still done by Deke, I believe. Could be wrong, but it definitely had that 90s feel to it, but it had this certain nuance that just made it like slightly more, you can look at it, you can see like they pulled it off. This looks good. It's simplistic, but it looks so good. And yeah, as I said, the only thing that looks kind of odd is the Jean Grey one. Just kind of an odd suit. But everything else looks so cool to me, And then we kind of have like the size comparisons here of everyone. See a bit of the animators over here. The top one is Derek Hoberg, and then Frank Brunner is below him. So it says primarily the work of Hoberg with supervision from Will and work by Larry Houston. So these guys, I think, established the simplified versions for this show. And then we see some storyboards here. I think this is just straight up the opening. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That iconic theme song that apparently was lifted from, I think, a song from India recently. Well, not recently, I guess it's been about 5 or so years now. But, yeah, there was some sort of legal thing going on with that, so kind of crazy because that song is so iconic. You know, if you know X-Men, you can just hear that. It's so cool. And then I think this is even more broken down of the same. And then here we have in the actual frames. And yeah, that opening was awesome. You know, you got energized watching that for sure. Yeah, it opened with the Night of the Sentinels, which they were always cool. But it was a perfect way for them to introduce, you know, Jubilee into the mix by saying, hey, here's this new mutant who, you know, the teens or whoever can identify with. And then let's throw her in with the established heroes, and we can kind of experience the show through those eyes, being introduced to the Institute and the Danger Room and all these sort of things. It was really great how it was set up. And just kind of too being like, imagine if this was happening to you, if you were personally being hunted by this giant robot. You know, your parents were ashamed of you because you were different and all this sort of stuff. Which is still something, not the robot thing, but, you know, being disowned by parents and all that. That is something that unfortunately kids can go through. And so there's always been layers to the X-Men in that way. But yeah, too, another thing, X-Men, the comics were too sexualized for me as a 7-year-old boy to pick up. My mom was very protective of me in that way. So watching the cartoon was the only way I experienced X-Men for years. And which was good because the cartoon was really taking a lot of notes from the comics at the time. There were a lot of key moments and even newer key characters like Omega Red and stuff. Like, if Omega Red wasn't on the animated series, I don't think he would have as huge of a fan base. And he wasn't even on that many episodes. And he wasn't on that many issues of the comic either. But the fact that, you know, we as kids remembered those few episodes, him and Colossus and all that stuff. They were like, oh yeah, this guy's cool. He's got these like, these energy draining tentacles and all this stuff. And him and Wolverine have this toe-to-toe fight. It's so cool. But yeah, not a lot happened with him, but when we see stuff with him, we're like, oh, they just made a Funko of him, they've made a figure of him. You know, we get excited about that. But it's so strange because this is definitely like, the 90s had quite a few good superhero shows, you know, that still hold up, and it's very rare. I mean, even if you look back, you know, to previously before that, I can't say honestly all of the old 80s Ninja Turtles episodes hold up very well, but the X-Men holds up, Batman the Animated Series holds up, Spider-Man holds up okay. But I think just the difference in the art style a little bit is kind of what made it not as appreciated, possibly. It's still good. But I would say, like, certainly Batman Animated and X-Men were, like, the best you could do in the 90s for your superhero shows. They're just incredible. They had, great music, even though totally different. Stuff with Batman was very orchestral. And the X-Men stuff was very, I guess, I don't know, mechanical. A lot of it. How do you describe the theme song? It's not, was it pop synth or I don't know, but yeah, it fit the show though. This kind of this futuristic feel, you have Morph here, and then yeah, this is from the show too. This is a very attractive rogue drawn here, and it's like, oh yeah, let's remember the soft breathing animation here, the heaving of the chest, and it's very much how they did it at the time. They didn't pull punches still with making the women very much how they were in the comics, only not with as many fine lines. I mean, they're still what they were, and speaking of Omega Red, there he is there. But now it seems like, they want to get rid of the chest on characters and stuff to make it safer and all of this, but it's whatever. I don't really understand it. But yeah, the show, it had, see like the extra black highlights and stuff. I think this was one of the few shows to do that. To kind of stand in for the fine line shadowing, cross-hatching. But it worked. The show looked great. And then I remember when they had a guest spot on the Spider-Man cartoon, and they did not look the same. I was like, oh man, what happened? They tried, and like they got the same voice actors and everything, but it just didn't quite look the same as this show. We have the stuff with Mojo here, and yeah, Mojo wasn't huge in the comics. It was maybe like a 2 or 3 part little story, but they made this fun little memorable beat out of that on the show, and so now it's like, oh cool, look at this Mojo thing. I always thought, even amongst all of that, I thought that Mr. Sinister was like the strangest thing in the cartoon. I don't know why. It's just maybe like how his cape was or something, but I always just thought, like, what's this guy's deal? He's so very odd. Even amongst the mutants, he is so odd. And then I think they're moving into the Dark Phoenix stuff. Maybe. I don't know. A little newspaper ad from the New York Times there. So yeah, I think they're going into the Dark Phoenix. And I remember, yeah, with this stuff too. Lady Deathstroke, Yoriko. If I remember, this was an hour-long special too that premiered as like a prime time, like Friday night on Fox thing. I vaguely remember it because it was a bit more violent, that episode too. And then the Phoenix Saga as well. They had premiered part of it as like a Fox prime time thing. Every now and then they would do that. I know they did it with Batman animated a few times, and they even, I think they threw Power Rangers for a spell too. But I remember being like so fixated during the Phoenix Saga thing. I was making myself a snack and still watching it like at the same time, and I had cut right here on my palm with the butter knife trying to cut an orange, and so I had like orange juice like going directly into this cut, and it was super painful. And I was a littler kid at the time, but I remember just like being so engrossed in the show that I was just like, oh. And then yeah, I accidentally just cut my hand with a butter knife. But like even now, I still don't know a lot of the ins and the outs of the X-Men cartoon, or just the X-Men in general, like all the villains and everything. A lot of the base stuff. But I've yet to do a full run through of the show as an adult. Watched a little bit of it with my kids, but we have not completed it all the way yet. It's still a good show for sure. I haven't even sat down and rewatched all of Batman the Animated Series either, so it's not to discount the quality of those shows. I just haven't had the time. But yeah, it's good stuff. Like, I'm sure all of you watching have seen this show. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. I think it was on for 5 years, maybe. And then they go into a little bit of it here too. The last season, basically it didn't get as much for the last season of the show, so then the animation style changed quite a bit, which I remembered, and I was like, why does stuff look different now? And it irked me too, because one of the episodes had Captain America and Wolverine. It was like a flashback sort of episode. And I was like, man, I finally got a Captain America animated thing, and the art style's not the same, and so that really annoyed me. And then they colored his stripes wrong on his stomach. They were like, something just looked off. They looked like thinner. It was like they used the Secret War action figure as the base for it. But I think they'll show it here after a while. And then, yeah, stuff with like Bishop and all that. Time travel, a very huge part in X-Men lore. Well, I don't even remember this here. That's why they gotta go rewatch it. Silver Samurai. Yeah, but I felt like the X-Men was certainly one of those shows that did a lot more story-wise than quite a few shows. You know, it had a continuous narrative, which was rare with a lot of animated stuff at that time. A lot of it was, you know, these little 10-minute shorts, more or less. It was popularized by like Nickelodeon at the time, and a little later by Cartoon Network as well. So that's kind of the direction things moved in, but the show would maintain a storyline throughout. Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. Look how off that is, and that just irked me so much. It's like, why did they do that? Yeah, it's switched quality here. And I mean, I'm glad we still got those episodes, but you could tell things had changed. Everyone looked, I don't know, more rounded, I guess would be the way to describe it. Didn't seem as dark. You can see, like here. I don't know if you can even really see. Look at that Jubilee. See? Everything looks lighter. There's less shadow. There's another Cap image there. That's a little better than that, but still. And then, yeah, here's a montage of that. The big standout was probably the origin of Mr. Sinister there. And I don't even remember this one down here. But yeah, this episode they talked about like Darwinism. They showed like a dead body. There's a lot of crazy things that happen in that episode. And then you didn't see like any of the key X-Men characters. It was all like, it was like Professor X's grandfather or whatever interacting with Essex. And it was something that wasn't done at all. And here's the more simplified. So yeah, interesting. And then it looks like this is just kind of some extra. It says art of Will Mignot. And then here's a bit of like the promo stuff. I know these are like the Pizza Hut VHS tapes you could get. I want to say they've got like the placemat. Yeah, right here. Placemat. Some of the cards. Ad there. But yeah, the X-Men were definitely very huge in the 90s. And they're doing a new animated show on Disney Plus in the same vein as the 92 show. So that'll be cool. I know it won't be quite the same though, because, you know, it never is. But at least it'll be something. And then here we go. Here's some of the toys here too. I did not have a lot of these. I never had a normal Wolverine. I know. I think I had like the space one or some nonsense like that. And I know I got the Beast one during a Black Friday sale at KB Toys. He had like a backflip feature or something. And then I went and I colored his hair black with a Sharpie because it was blue. But yeah, this show is just so much fun. And I look forward to going back to and watching it for sure. And here's an episode breakdown too, so that's nice. And I think this is referencing the CG turnarounds they did at the end, which I thought was so cool because they look like giant action figures. And then here's kind of the vein of, I think the VHS packaging once again had like red done like this, and so here's a little bit of a nod to that, I think. But yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Let me know your X-Men memories down below. Love to hear your little nostalgic bits. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, you all have a super slumber. Thanks. Bye.